The Athletic, a great source for printed MLS news. Something I don't indulge in myself, which I wish I did, but I don't read enough, so I wouldn't utilize it as well. The Athletic posts an article about Charlotte FC's head coach Miguel Ramirez, and he has just been the absolute center of attention for this team. It should be about the fans, it should be about the team on the field, but it's always about him, and it's all the wrong reasons. Quote after quote after quote continue to fly out about his dissatisfaction with the side that he has, the facilities, the ownership, this, that, and the other. It's almost like somebody didn't tell him he was joining an expansion team. Some of the quotes that we were seeing. Let's wait, when asked about how his roster was going into the season, let's wait until the roster finishes building out. When we finish that, I'll answer the question and tell you how I see things. Until then, we are screwed. He has lamented the club's lack of permanent training facility, has shown his annoyance with Charlotte's inability to land some of his top transfer targets, and has basically threatened to walk out the door. To start all of this, is Ramirez out of line, or is this completely fair? I ask you, sir.
Yeah, I want to say that he is out of line, to be honest. I think he needs to kind of reel it back in and then take a step back and realize this is a club that's being started from the ground up. I don't believe Charlotte's coming from like a USL team, right? Like it's starting from scratch.
I do believe so. I know there were Charlotte-based lower level teams.
Right. But it's not like an FCC where they're translating, just like
Correct.
taking the team, moving the league. Like you're starting from the ground up. I'm pretty sure that is the way too, because I remember them like talking about their first ever signing and all that.
Right.
Of course, not everything's going to go perfect when you have to literally build an entire club from the ground up. Of course, I'm sure things could have gone better. It sounds like there are some genuine issues and probably some things that Ramirez has a genuine, like, what's the right way to say it? Like a genuine right to be upset over. But I think for the most part, this is the hand that he's dealt with. He signed up to be their coach. He needs to back the guys that he has now, give them some confidence. And at the end of the season, if things don't work out, you move on and you go find something that aligns better with what you're looking for. But I think while he is the head coach of this team and while he has control of, managing this team, he needs to lock in, support them, and not cause this much commotion about how unhappy he is with the way things are being built up at Charlotte. What do you think?
Say it with your chest, bro. It's absolutely out of line. Somebody had to have told him that when he came in, they were starting from the ground up. There's no way they led him on and he had no idea, right? But that's the challenge of being in the role of being a head coach of an expansion team. You can look at the Atlantas, you can look at the LAFCs and see how great they started, right? But they had stupid rich owners who bought them everything that they wanted and managers that got players that fit their style. Charlotte came in through COVID. The transfer market was messed up. I'm just, everything's just flooding my head now, but all the issues that they had to deal with that I was reading about and going through. But expansion teams take time before they find their success, right? Some expansion teams still haven't found success. Inter Miami and FCC are class examples of that. Orlando City took 6 years before they made success. Minnesota took 4. All these teams had to work their way to success, figure out what their issues were, build from the ground up.
Yeah, I don't think it's fair to do this on day, game week 2. Like, if FCC had a consistent coach through their first 3 years, absolutely he deserves to complain every little bit. But you're in game week 2 of the existence of the club and you're complaining already.
Absolutely. It's criminal. This appointment, the appointment of Miguel Angel Ramirez into this role is feeling more and more like some Euro snob coach who thought that he was going to get a big bag of money to show up, get anything that he was asked for because he came from Europe, and just walk through a league that was not good. Everything about this whole last 2 weeks, 3 weeks feels like I'm from Europe in a lesser league and I should be getting everything I want, blah, 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 blah. Now he's realizing the challenges that he has to deal with, and he's getting ready to walk out. And I'm going to use this term, and it might be a little harsh, but it's straight up embarrassing. I can't imagine what's going through the player's head, right? You're showing up every day to training with a coach who thinks you guys all suck and doesn't want to be there and thinks the facilities are terrible, and you have to just show up and play. Awful atmosphere. It has to be. You know, they need to look as a team like the Nashvilles or the New York Cities and understand that, and New York City is even a stretch because they had Man City feeding them players all the whole time. But understand that you might have a difficult first year adapting, especially as a flat out expansion team, not a USL promoted, right? You have to look at the Nashvilles and think, okay, I'm going to get through this first year, learn where my weaknesses are, be a good soccer coach, be a good soccer mind, and understand, okay, my weaknesses are here, here, here. My play style depends on these certain tactics and these certain roles and responsibilities that the players that I have right now are not getting it. Tell your scouts to go look for players to fit these roles and responsibilities and build up for next year. But crying and complaining is not the answer. Not every team is going to be Atlanta, Seattle, LAFC. That's just life. The whole point of, oh, you can't get your transfer targets. You're in Charlotte. That is a small market for football. It just is. 75,000 is great, right? But if you look at the big name markets, you get the big name players. New York City, LA, LAFC. Those teams get the players because of where they're located. So it's another obstacle you have to deal with. But he probably didn't know that because he didn't do any work to realize where he was going. He just made an impulse decision.
I'll give you a little bit of a context as to his background prior to coming in here, because he doesn't actually have any European experience. So he's coming.
Let me rephrase. I know he doesn't have European experience, but he's a Spanish manager.
Yes,
so my
came
point
from Brazil
wasn't,
most recently.
Yeah, my point wasn't he was a European manager, European.
No, but he has that vibe to him.
But he has that Euro snob vibe. Like, I'm from Europe and MLS is lesser than me.
Like, that I'm better than this league.
Correct. And that's where I was going with that. I knew he wasn't in Europe per se. But he has that vibe,
Yeah, I can give you a little context on his previous management stint before he came over to Charlotte. He was with Internacional in Brazil. The season, I believe, prior to him taking over, the team had 70 points and finished second in the league. He comes in the season after so he comes in the 2021 season. He joins in March 2021. He was sacked by June. He made it 3 months, I think. And Internacional, I believe, finished in 12th place that season. So I'm not sure what is he basing this like pompous this very like you guys should build around me kind of attitude. Like, it's not like you're Jose Mourinho coming in with this long laundry list of success that you've had. You're coming in off of a really bad stint in Brazil.
Yeah, he has not had a stint with a club with over a 50% win ratio in his entire career at the pro level. He was a youth coach forever. And maybe that's what it was. Maybe they wanted to be a FC Dallas, Philly, Red Bull type of, we want to build from the ground up and we want you to, integrate that to the top team. But that's not what these quotes are saying. These quotes are saying, I was expected to be handed a boatload of money to get whoever I wanted. Now, let's talk about this whole training facilities thing. They, as I mentioned earlier, they became a team with a plan that was laid out during COVID or right before COVID when they were trying to expand, right? Everybody's timeline got pushed a little bit. They had a really good plan in place. I did a little bit of research on this. They had a really good plan in place. They had locations picked out. They had commitments from architecture firms to put everything together. And then COVID came and everything got bumped. City pulled funding on their training. They were going to give them an old kind of lot of land that nobody was really getting to put together a training facility. And they had this design and it looked super professional, super nice. But the funding got pulled. And without the funding, they weren't going to do it. But you can't blame anybody for that, right? You just can't. They've got a design from the same people who built the Man City Academy and the NYCFC Academy ground to put together something, again, when it was rendered, it looked phenomenal. But you can tell that it's been abandoned or it's been on the back burner because everything in there says 2021. But because it got pushed back, it's 2022. But you can't throw a hissy fit over not having a training ground because of the fact that the city's pulling funding on your team. It's going to come. It's going to look really nice. But you got to wait. Again, how many teams come in and have everything laid out from permanent stadium, permanent training grounds, complete established identity of who they are in the city that they're playing in? None. Everybody has at least 2 or 3 years where they're playing in these makeshift homes for a little bit. That's what expansion is.
Yeah, that's what Atlanta did. They played half their first season at Bobby Dodd Stadium.
I mean, Nashville played two years outside of the new stadium that they're about to get. Minnesota played 2 years outside of Allianz. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, I do kind of feel like I understand why he could be frustrated if he was, coming in with this expectation, and I get it. He shouldn't put the blame on the team. I could just maybe I could see where his frustration comes from a little bit, but I still think that he shouldn't handle it the way that he is. It feels not very professional the way he's handling it. He's kind of just blowing up about it. Like if you're upset, that's fine, but like at least do what you can for the time being. Like you're an employee of the team.
I think that's a really good point. It's not necessarily the fact that he's upset with it. It's how he's handling it. You are an adult. You are a professional manager, and you have to put a good face on for a brand new team. Be better. Just be better. So, what happens if Miguel Angel Ramirez packs it up and walks out the door? 2 months from now, he says, I'm done. See ya.
It would put them in probably a tough spot. I don't think it would be the end of the world for them though, because I don't see this season as being anything super fantastic for them. They're not coming in like LAFC or Atlanta where they have expectations of making the playoffs. I kind of think this first season they're gonna kind of try to settle in, get a little bit used to the league. So if he were to walk out mid-season, I don't think it's the end of the world. I think they can get by with an interim, and then at that point, go find a coach that wants to be here and wants to play for this team.
I did a little bit of research on expansion teams with unsuccessful first-year coaches because I like numbers and I'm a nerd.
Uh-huh.
Can you think of there are 3 teams who were expansion teams whose Coach did not get out of the first year. They got sacked. Can you guess who they are?
This is all-time MLS.
All-time MLS. Doesn't count 1996. So it doesn't count the startup.
Okay. Does FCC count? I don't remember if the first year was when he got sacked because of the off the field stuff.
That was the second year.
That was the second year.
Alan Cook at FCC lasted 3 months.
Oh,
He was out.
yikes.
So that's one.
Okay. A part of me feels like Orlando.
Not Orlando. He lasted the full year.
Okay. Inter Miami.
Nope. Diego Alonso lasted the full year and split.
I don't know if I can guess the other two, honestly.
That's all right, because one of them doesn't exist anymore. Chivas USA hired Thomas Ranjan, who lasted. Thomas Ranjan had an awful MLS managerial list with 1 to 2 years max before getting fired and moving on somewhere else. He lasted about 4 months, and that team no longer exists. Alan Cook for FCC lasted 3 months, and we know how we feel about FCC. Tidor Thordarson for Vancouver.
Oh, Vancouver.
Also
Nice.
only lasted about 3 months before being sacked. The difference, Cook and Thordarson came from USL up. So they had success at the USL level, couldn't adapt, were fired.
That's fair.
But all 3 teams found this immense struggle and had a long time before they either got good, figured out that they're really bad, or straight up stopped existing.
I think what you're telling me, what I'm gathering from this is within 10 years, Charlotte's not going to exist anymore.
It's only week 2. I'm not jumping to any conclusion, but this isn't a good sign of things to come. We can look at the teams that only had a coach for a year. Diego Alonso, I mentioned Inter Miami. They're 3 years in now, still trying to figure out what they're doing. Carlos Cordoba at the Miami Fusion, which no longer exists. Jason Kreis at NYC, probably the only team with a bit of success right now. Short-term success after having a one-and-done manager. And Mo Johnston at TFC in 2011, 2009, where it took them a decade before they got anything close to a playoff run.
Yeah.
It will be a monumental sign of failure from the club if he walks out the door because he can't handle the pressure of being a startup coach. They had 75,000 show up for game 1. We're going to talk about that. But these fans are already not super happy. Salud. They're not super happy with a lot of things, and we're going to dive into that. But this is not going in the right direction, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agreed. I think we should probably move on to the next topic because we've been on this one for a while now.
Have we really? It feels like I could talk about this all day, but
no, I think that's fair. I think it's fair. It's I think the main crux of this podcast episode is mainly on Ramirez and kind of how things are looking in the early stages for Charlotte. And I feel like the best way to sum it up is, things don't look great. I mean, it's great that they had 75,000 fans, but that kind of feels like a blanket being put over the true problems with the club right now.